Caretaker's warning. The premise behind this story is that what would happen if the kids actually listened to the caretaker who warned them not to go down to the camp or follow the path. Again, this is one where I could probably cut a little from the beginning, but I think I'm going to leave the beginning in and just try to work it so that it does work. So Caretaker's Warning by Jay Wilburn. Quinn's friend, Brielle Thompson, crossed her arms at the head of the dark drive and said, "You can't possibly be considering going with him." Let me fix this a little bit because that's a little clunky. You can't possibly consider going with him. You can't be serious. All right, so that sounds a little more like people talk. Quinn Mateer looked, okay, I got people looking again. Quinn Mateer, let's say, referenced. Quinn Mateer referenced the gaunt face of Leland Vettel under the unflattering starlight, and then back at her friends. Okay, I got back again. And then, I'll say focused on her friends. Alright, so far so good. I don't think this is a good idea. Brielle motioned at Leland as if that made her whole argument, and then she turned to face down the dark, winding path that led to the old camp. Layla Young voiced the concern Brielle had simply motioned. Going back with him seems like the worst idea. This is a silly challenge from when we were in high school. Let me put a just in there. This is just a silly challenge from when we were in high school. He's an actual creepy stranger. No offense, sir. Leland shrugged his bony shoulders as if he knew fully well how creepy he was. "I'll go back with you if you'll drive me," Quinn said. "We'll go back," Keegan Turner said with a dramatic pause, "after we explore the camp." Quinn's heart dropped. He had given her hope. Okay, let's say scant. He'd given her scant hope on purpose. Now I need to watch for the word scant later, because again I'll fixate on it and then keep using it. So using it now may mean that I've used it a couple times recently. "Just come on," Brielle said. "We'll stay together and everything will be fine." "It won't be," Leland said. His tone was matter of fact, but with his scarecrow proportions here in the dark and the thready timbre of his voice, it came off as a horror movie cliche. In the dark on the path to the camp, every kid in Butcher Falls. Okay, let me make sure I spell that right. I'm planning to write a story about Butcher Falls later, so I guess I'm just setting it up now. The camp every kid in Butcher Falls, North Carolina, had told ghost stories about their entire lives. This all felt too real. All right, I'm going to reread that sentence because it felt a little clunky. In the dark, okay, let's say on this dark path to the camp, every kid in Butcher Falls, North Carolina had told ghost stories about their entire lives. This all felt too real. All right, I think that works. Tate Green said, "Stop that, old man. You stop it now." "Don't talk to him like that," Quinn said. "He's just trying to warn us." "He's trying to scare us," Tate said. He was still built like a football player, even though he had not played since hurting himself his freshman year of high school. If things got rough, Tate would hurt Leland, and Quinn would feel responsible for having caused the conflict with her cold feet. They had gotten back together. Okay, we don't want it to sound like they're dating, because that's not what I mean. The group, I think that may be good enough. The group had gotten back together, drank a little, but not nearly as much as when they were in high school. When they all were in high school, let's say. Trying again. The group had gotten back together, drank a little, but not nearly as much as when they were all in high school, and had gotten around to visiting the legendary camp. Sorry, I'm a little dry. Layla said, "Can you just wait by the car for us? We'll be done soon and we'll take you home." Waiting by the car with him, Tate tossed a hand at Leland. I'm not waiting around here, Leland said. Are you calling the cops on us? Keegan asked. Wouldn't do any good, Leland said, as if on script. Tate turned his back and cursed before mumbling, "This guy." "I'm riding back now," Quinn said. "I'll go with you if you'll take me, or I'm riding with him." Layla said maybe we could drop her off and come back. Tate stood a while before turning his head to see she was addressing him. "I'm going in there and I'm looking around because I'm not scared of silly old stories. You all can wait by the car for me if you want." All right. It was his car, his keys, his play. He was calling the shots even if he hadn't been the quarterback for years. "I'm going," Keegan said. "I didn't come here to turn around like we did in grade school." "I'm staying with Keegan," Brielle said. They had messed around in high school off and on, but made their messing around official when they went off to school. The four of Quinn's friends were together, and Quinn ended up out of state. Went together. Yeah, that's right. Okay. Layla looked at Quinn, Leland, Tate. Layla looked at Quinn, Leland, Tate, and back to Quinn in that order. She and Tate weren't a thing as far as Quinn knew, but she barely felt like she knew them anymore at all. They had developed their own shorthand, references, jokes. Let me say inside jokes. I know it's probably implied, but I'll just say it directly. Inside jokes and private language in the year they'd been gone together. Quinn didn't speak their language anymore, and this moment made that clearer. "Sorry, Quinn, I said I would. Just come with us or wait. It'll be fine." All right. Let's be sure it's specific to Layla's saying. Layla said... There we go. All right. Quinn fought the urge to look at the old man again. Okay, let's say study. Or size up, that's better. Alright, let's see if that works. Quinn fought the urge to size up the old man again. Alright. He stayed quiet, either reading the very real threat from Tate or reading that warning them away any longer wouldn't do any good. She took a deep breath and sighed it out before she agreed, "I'm sorry too." Leland spoke very little on the way to Quinn's mother's house, and then only in response to her questions. She thought maybe... Be sure I'm on screen there. She thought maybe she could ask more. He seemed willing enough to try to back up his warning about not going to the camp. She didn't find her way to those questions. Maybe it was partly the sadness of being left behind by her friends in more ways than one. It might have been the greasy chemical smell that filled the cab of Leland Vettle's old truck, or it might have been the fear that he would do something to her. This threat she had seen in the other girls' faces. It was no small thing. "Are they really in danger?" she asked. It felt more like she was gauging... Alright. I feel like I'm doing this wrong. Gauging. See, that looks like gagging, even though it's gauging. It felt more like she was gauging her own danger at that point. Let's say measuring. Measuring. I think that may be a better word. "Are they really in danger?" she asked. It felt more like she was measuring her own danger at that point. Leland said, "I tried my best." "I know." She wasn't sure she knew anything at all. "It's just lots of kids go out there daring each other. Have been for years, and nothing has happened. Not nothing. If kids were disappearing, it'd be in the news. It has been. It's just if no bodies are found, it's considered a missing person or a runaway, and nothing is connected to the camp." "So how many kids? Maybe a dozen over the last 20 years? Quinn stared a moment and then turned her attention to the darkness outside her window. This was foolish. She would be the one to disappear. Quinn found herself scanning the debris around her feet for something to use as a weapon. She should have stayed with her friends. The only risk they posed was being a little tipsy for driving. He pulled to a stop on the curb outside her mother's house. She opened the truck door with a hollow crack from the handle. Bailing out into her yard, she turned to see if he pursued in the overhead light of the cab. He wasn't even looking at her, and she felt guilty. He looked sad, like he had failed in his mission. Will they be okay? She asked. He gave a deep breath sigh. I can just say deep sigh. I don't know if that's... Need deep breath there. Keep it simple. He gave a deep sigh this time before speaking. Maybe if they had pulled this stunt over Christmas break, but not now. Why not now? It's been waking up for a while, and now its eyes are open. He sounded dejected, but the words carried all the threat of an ancient curse. I'm sorry, she said, not for the first time that night. Me too, but I tried my best, Leland said. Do you mind getting the door? She stared a moment longer and then slammed the heavy door with all the weight of a vaulted tomb. He knows... Alright, scene break. He knows where I live, she said out loud to the empty house. Okay, she felt safer inside with doors locked, but this was a fact she'd have to live with. She opened her mother's Netflix and scrolled up and down and side to side without ever picking anything. Finally, she took out her phone and texted her mother. I'm back at the house. She paused a beat and added safe and sound. Then she sent it without really feeling it. The dots floated and wavered. Her mother must have been on break at the max value distribution hub across town. Her mother had started working night shifts there years ago when Quinn's dad was sick but still around. After he got well and ran off, Mom kept the job and took more shifts. Quinn got her music, theater, and academic scholarships to a small school in North Georgia. She took the rest on student loans despite her mother saying otherwise. Quinn wanted her mom to drop back hours, but Mom kept working anyway. Mom's message came through. Early night. You're getting boring. Should that be a question mark? I'm going to make that a question mark. Early night. You're getting boring. Quinn laughed out loud, but then covered her mouth as the echo of the sharp noise frightened her more than it should have. She typed back, yeah, I'm a real old lady these days. Mom asked, did you have fun at least? As much as I could hope for, I guess. Mom asked, are you okay? All right, let's use an italics to show the texts here. I'm not sure if that's the best way to do it, but I needed it to stand out from the tags a little bit. Quinn paused, but feared if she waited too long her mother would worry. Whether there was a good reason to worry or not was beside the point. My friends may be murdered at the cursed camp, and I may have let a creepy old man know where I live, she said to the empty house. Quinn typed, I'm fine, just tired. Don't want to play high school games anymore. LOL, Mom typed. You were never much for those games even when you were in high school. That gave her pause. There was always some distance between her and her friends. She was always on the edge of the group and bowed out of more things than she joined. Since going away to school, she felt more herself, maybe for the first time. Different friends, different experiences, better friends who didn't push her to do things she didn't want. Shortly, she would be headed back for the summer term and an on-campus job. That needs to be a compound adjective. So we'll put in a dash. All right. An on-campus job sorting sheet music in the disheveled music library. Better than high school games and creepy old caretakers straight out of central casting. Maybe school was as close to home as she had now. That brought a sting of tears. Quinn pressed her nose and fought back against them. She did not accept that this was a thing worth crying over. Quinn texted again, don't let them overwork you, Mom. The dots danced on her screen a while. They just have me sorting magazines. It's a real cush job. Quinn let out a small bark of laughter at that. It didn't scare her, and she didn't think about the camp were creepy caretakers. Love you, Mom. Love you too. Good night. Quinn turned off Netflix and settled on some Hallmark Christmas movies playing out of season on another channel. She expected to be asleep soon on the couch, but it wasn't going to be one of those nights. All right, scene break. Quinn started to text. Quinn stared at the text with a mix of fear and anger. They were messing with her. Her old friends always messed with her. Not only had they made her ride home with an old stranger, but now they were teasing her. She read the text from Brielle again. He's after us. I'm so scared. I'm so sorry, Quinn. It was off. All right, I need to explain that a little bit. It was a little off. Save the message. That'll be clearer, I think. All right, the message was a little off. It worked in making her legitimately afraid, but the wording was almost too good, too real. Brielle wasn't stupid, not by a far cry. People treated her that way, but she wasn't. She was one of the few engineering student. She was one of the few, let's say female. She was one of the few female engineering students at UNC Asheville. None of Quinn's friends were stupid. They were just mean more often than they should be. Being away at school had not changed them. It had just widened the gulf between her and them. Butcher Falls sat halfway between Asheville and Charlotte, but no one passed through the town from those places unless they got really lost off the highways. So Quinn had to make the friends that were at hand. "It's too real," she said to her empty house. If they were writing a scary text to tease her, it'd be more over the top, more direct maybe. She decided Tate must have been writing it from Brielle's phone. He had the dark humor for that kind of thing. Not his humor, she decided. All right, let's say not just his humor. Not just his humor, she decided. He had a deeper mean streak. He didn't want to tease. Tate wanted to punish. He wanted her. I'm gonna make that get fancy and do a semicolon there so we know those two sentences are connected. He didn't want to tease. Tate wanted to punish. He wanted her to suffer for not sticking with the group. Now Quinn was just angry. She typed, "Ha, good stuff. You really got me. Tell everyone I got home safe, BTW. Thanks for asking." The dots floated, vanished, floated up, disappeared again, then nothing. That was the end of it. Brielle or Tate on Brielle's phone didn't send whatever they were typing. Quinn guessed they were done, and she returned to her movie. Scene break. A third round of sirens finally got Quinn out of bed shortly after 2 in the morning. She wasn't really sleeping that well anyway. How many damn police cars are in the falls anyway? Alright, that's 2 anyways. I gotta change this. She wasn't really sleeping that well to begin with. See if that works so it's not 2 anyways in a row. Alright, third round of sirens. She wasn't sleeping that well to begin with. How many damn police cars are in the falls anyway? They could have been county or state. Might be a big accident out on one of the smaller highways. He's after us. I'm scared. I'm so sorry, Quinn. Quinn heard the words in her head and Brielle's voice, even though she was positive it was Tate. She started to leave the window, but then saw a shape move through the edge of her yard close to the neighbor's fence. She watched with her heart thudding, but the shadows refused to reveal any figure and the movement neglected to repeat. Her mind split between thinking it was Tate coming to scare her more or the caretaker coming back to prove it was a mistake for her to take a ride from him. Alright, I think that sentence works okay. She stepped away from the window and a text came through from Brielle's phone. "This is Keegan. I don't know where anyone is. Don't know who's still alive. I hear sirens, but it's too late." Quinn sighed and looked to the window, but didn't step up to it again. That's a lot of typing for a man in a slasher film. You're not as good at being mean as Tate is. Close, but not as good. Quinn typed, "I know you are outside my house. I'll call the cops on you if you don't stop. I don't know where I am," the texter declared from Brielle's phone. "Don't know where anyone is. We should have listened." "Screw you," Quinn texted back. No bubbles, no follow-up text. Quinn watched the bugs dance in the streetlight and listened to more sirens. If she did call the police, there wouldn't be any left to respond. She waited a bit longer before she texted Layla. "Tell them to leave me alone. It's not funny. I've had enough of it." Layla didn't respond. Quinn went to heat up some Chinese leftovers from the fridge and watched a documentary on a band that broke up before she was born. Scene break. He wouldn't stop pounding on the door. Stop it, Tate. Stop it. All right, I don't need the comma there because I used the exclamation point. All right, Quinn screamed into the locked door. Into the face of the locked door. I'm serious, Tate bawled. I'm sorry about everything. Please let me in. Please, Quinn. Shut up and leave me alone. Just shut up and go away. I swear on my other mother's eyes. I swear on my soul, Quinn. He was fully crying now, blubbering through what sounded for all the world like tears. I swear to God's bones. It's the truth. Let me in. I'm bleeding and he's still out there. Looking back, it was the God's bones comment that pushed her away from opening the door. It sounded like a medieval cuss. It sounded like anything except Tate being serious. Go away. She took a few steps from the door, but stopped again. That crying sounded like too much. Okay, too much to be real. All right. The crying sounded too forced to be real. He let out a girlish shriek, and the crying retreated from the door. She pictured him faking the sound of walking away as he waited outside for her to open the door for a real scare. Quinn breathed out a more modern curse and returned to her reheated Chinese food on the kitchen counter. All right, scene break. She let Keegan in as she dialed 911. He slammed Quinn's door closed and worked the locks. 911 was busy. She stared down at her phone in shock, thinking about Tate's crying and Brielle's texts. As the call died on its own, she said, "What the hell is going on?" He slid down the door to the floor, leaving a smear that could have been blood in the darkness of the foyer. "What happened?" she whispered. It was true. Everything the guy said was true. Keegan closed his eyes. Tate was here. Her voice shook. "I didn't let him in because I didn't believe him. I didn't believe any of you." Keegan didn't open his eyes, nor did he answer. She dropped to her knees and shook him. He didn't respond to her touch or his own name. His breathing was shallow, and her hands came back bloody. All right, came back bloody. A single whoop from a siren sounded outside. She looked up to see blue and red flashing on her wall. Quinn ran to the window and saw the police car rolling slowly down the center of the street through her neighborhood. Wait, wait, she beat on the glass, but the patrol car still rolled slowly. Quinn ran to the front door. Keegan's body blocked. Ran to the front door. All right, that's two. Keegan's body blocked it. All right. She whispered the mantra of the night, "I'm sorry." She shoved him aside. He still breathed, but did not wake up. I don't need quotation marks there. All right, moving on. She opened the door enough to slip out and then ran diagonally through her yard and into the street, calling for the police officer. The car kept rolling. She beat on the passenger door. Still rolling. Quinn opened it to find the empty vehicle. The radio squawked with overlapping voices. Some of them were screaming. A few cried in a way that reminded her of Tate and tightened her chest. All right, I need a period there. She reached in and tried to use the radio. Static screamed through the speakers, and she dropped the mic like it had bitten her. The unmanned patrol car finally veered and crunched into a mailbox, a brick mailbox, on the other side of the road. Quinn looked to her house. Okay. All right, let's change the look. Quinn checked over her shoulder. Quinn checked over her shoulder at her house and then around the empty street. She prayed it was empty. She wondered where Tate had gone and where he was now. She reached in and her hand paused over a shotgun locked in some sort of holder. With 3 breaths, she took hold of it, but the weapon wouldn't give. She pulled harder, but couldn't get it. Let's say couldn't free it. Couldn't free it. Maybe it was the angle. The siren gave another single whoop on its own. Quinn staggered away from the car and fell on her butt in the middle of the road. She took to her feet and ran as far as the front steps before she looked through... Let's say stared. Before she stared through the wide-open front door into her dark house. All right, Keegan? No one answered. He could be behind the door. He could be behind the door. Anyone could be behind the door. She knew it was a mistake, but she placed her foot on the first step and shifted her weight forward. Quinn, the voice echoed from the front of her neighborhood. She stumbled backward, but did not fall this time. Was that Tate? It sounded like Tate Green. From inside the house, deeper in the house, Keegan's voice came weak. Help, Quinn. From the head of the street, Tate's voice echoed stronger. That's not Keegan. Not anymore. Run away from him. How could Tate hear Keegan's voice from all the way over there? Glass shattered inside, let's say the house, just to be clear. Inside the house. And Keegan Turner's voice came in a shout. Okay, let's just say he shouted. Keegan Turner shouted. Alright, is that how you spell shouted? Yes, it is. Why are you telling me it's spelled wrong? Alright, Keegan Turner shouted with a ragged edge to his voice. Alright, by God's bones, Quinn, get in here. Her blood ran cold with that, and she ran for the front of the neighborhood. Quinn felt through her pockets for her phone, but it wasn't there. She had left it or dropped it, but she wasn't coming back. Not ever. Leland Vettle's truck screeched to a halt at the mouth of the road before Quinn could reach Tate, where he leaned. I don't know what leaned means. He leaned against the metal post of the stop sign. Tate's shirt was shredded, and the skin on his arms and chest didn't look much better. Bubbles rose from some of the wounds with each exhale, and they gurgled with the next intake of air. How did he yell? Okay. I'm just going to leave that like that. Alright. Leland leaned over and opened the passenger's door. Come on, you have to get out. You have to get out of here. Alright, let's say we. Come on, we have to get out of here. It's spreading. Tate gurgled in the back of his throat. He coughed up blood, but then spoke clearly. It's him. He did this. Help me get away. He's lying, Leland said. That's not your friend Tate anymore. Not after what happened to him. She looked down into Tate's desperate eyes. Quinn. Keegan's voice echoed. She turned to see Keegan wavering as he wandered up the road, carrying the shotgun from the police car. He held it by the butt with a few fingers and let the barrel... He held it by the... Alright. Okay. He held it by the butt with a few fingers and let the barrel drag the asphalt. Come to me. We need to go. Come to me. Tate reached for her. Let's change that. Reached for her from sitting by the stop sign. We need to go. They're not your friends anymore, Leland said. Please, Quinn, Tate and Keegan said in unison from opposite ends of the neighborhood. It was him. He did this. Quinn tried to back away from everyone, but she only succeeded in wavering in a small, uneven circle in the road. Her mind jumped back to Tate saying Keegan was no longer himself. Too loud for... Alright, let's say he spoke. Alright, let's say he called her. He had called her too loud for his condition. He had called her too loud for his condition, she thought. Keegan had said they should have listened. Then he passed out before he started walking now. Quinn, Leland said, come on. We're your friends, Tate said, as he used the stop sign to climb to his feet. We need to stick together. Keegan was on his knees now. Let's say Keegan dropped to his knees. Keegan dropped to his knees, but still worked his way forward, dragging the gun in a, let's say, an unsteady scrape. Unsteady scrape behind him. Alright, so far so good. She opened her mouth to say something, but then both the boys cried out, by God's bones. Quinn bolted for the truck. Tate cut into a run that defied his condition. He grabbed for her, but she ducked his arms and dove into the truck. Let's say dove into the cab. Dove into the front seat. Alright. Leland hit the gas with the door still open. Tate moved fast and reached for Quinn's ankles. Reached where? Reached where Quinn's ankles stuck out. Alright, let's check that sentence, make sure it makes sense. Tate moved fast and reached where Quinn's ankles stuck out. His knee buckled, and he fell to his face in the road as Quinn sat up. That's why you had to stop playing football. She pulled the door closed and fastened her seatbelt. The truck ran up on a curve and fell back to the street as Leland raced away as fast as the old engine would take him. I tried, he said. I know. The shotgun roared into the night behind them. A second blast followed at a distance. Instead of ducking, she turned her head and looked out the dirty, let's say peered. Again, I got a lot of looks going here. That's one of my problems with all my first drafts. Alright, peered out the dirty back window. The boys weren't in sight. No telling what they fired on. What do we do? Call the police? Won't do any good, Leland said. They were called. They all went. Some of them aren't themselves anymore. Zombies? Quinn asked. I wish, Leland said as he made another turn too fast and the wheels screamed at him for it. What is... She couldn't find the words and decided she didn't want to know. We need to get my mom. He shook his head. We can't go back. If she's back there with them. She's not. She's at work across town. We need to get out of town, he said. Then we get out that way and we pick her up as we go. Either that or let me out now. He kept driving with eyes forward. Leland, okay, we'll get her and then get as far as we can from this damn town without looking back. Quinn nodded in agreement. She thought she had already done that. Okay, what's that? She thought she had already left the damn town. Alright, she thought she had already left the damn town when she left for school. Now it would be forever. Alright, there's something that had popped into my head as I'd finished the story, and then I realized there'd be a consequence to it. She whispered, God's bones. Then she shivered. As the truck... I've already used screamed. As this truck screeched to a halt, the old seatbelt hurt her chest and cut off her surprised scream. When she looked, when she met Leland's eyes, she saw fear, and it terrified her. Quinn looked out her window at quiet yards and shallow security lights. Nothing to warrant that fear. As she faced him again in the idling truck, he said, "Get out." What? No. We need to get my mom. Don't make me. He seemed to choke on the end of that sentence. What happened? What's wrong? This may be too long. Getting a little dragging out the ending here, but let's go ahead and play it out and see how it works. What happened? What's wrong? You said she had to think and realized what she had said out loud. As her eyes widened, she said, "No, sorry. I was just repeating it to myself. It had creeped me out so bad." A horn blared and a vehicle swerved around them without slowing. Leland waited another beat and started driving again. Quinn glanced through the back glass, expecting to see the boys coming up behind them. "Don't do that again," he grumbled. Quinn nodded, but said nothing else as she texted her mom that they were coming. Alright, I don't know if that extended ending adds much. It adds word count, I guess. But I thought about her whispering that and out loud, and then how Leland would react, because that's sort of the signal. Let's have it be one more thing. By God's bones. She thought. right, good enough. So that is Caretaker's warning.